Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, PrecisionHydration.com.
Leaders in triathlete sweat testing and hydration with multi-strength electrolytes that match how you sweat. You can get 15% off with the code OxygenAddict15.
Team Oxygen Addict at team.oxygenaddict.com.
Online triathlon coaching, providing you with a personalised triathlon training plan, coaching advice and guidance from Rob Wilby, group video coaching calls, exclusive member discounts and a private Facebook group to chat to your supportive teammates and your coach.
Also fueledbycake.com.
That would be my charity cake recipe book featuring Vicky Holland, Emma Pooley, Chrissy Wellington, Laura Siddle, Rachel Joyce and loads more. It's £10 and it's all for charity.
And also a big shout out to our patrons
who support the show with a donation.
You can check out the link from the show notes or our homepage. And hello everybody and welcome to the show the week of, as we're recording, the 5th of February 2018. And how on earth are you today, Hells, my friend?
Rob, I'm tickety-boo and I went out on my bike today.
Was it an epic ride?
No, but I went out on my bike.
Tell the listeners how far it was, Helen. If you're claiming an outdoor ride in winter, you've got to tell us how long it was.
Possibly 3 minutes in each direction to the post office.
I love it. The double ride day. You can claim it as a double ride day. 3 minutes each way. That's brill.
Yep, 3 minutes each way. And you know what, Rob? I even went in my trainers. I didn't even go in my bike shoes because I was like, chances are I'll slip over on my backside on the, smooth floor of the post office. Go on.
Tell me it was the TT bike. Tell me that you TT'd the 100 yards to the post office.
No. It was my very nice road bike, but it wasn't a TT bike. That really would have been quite cool, wouldn't it? TT bike and trainers to the post office. God.
Yeah, that'd be classic.
So yeah, I did get out on my bike. Kind of. I spent the weekend doing quite a bit of coaching yesterday, so that was good fun ahead of our duathlon.
Oh,
really,
nice.
Really good fun. Yeah, so we did a turbo session because the weather was really not kind again, or it's just
it was a bit mingy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly, it was such a stunning day, but it was not good for taking beginners out on bikes on icy roads. So we did a turbo session and some running, and that was really cool. And yeah, went swimming last night.
So before we go on, hang on, your duathlon then, the Canute Duathlon based in Knutsford. What's the date?
29th of April 2018.
The 29th of April. So am I right in thinking it's canuteduathlon.com?
Correct. Yeah,
canuteduathlon.com.
If you fancy
beginners friendly duathlon, get yourself entered. You might even get shouted at by me and Helen.
Support, lots of it.
That's the phrase, Helen. Yeah,
the big
support.
Thing. Yeah, that's so yeah, lots of duathlon organising and coaching and all fun things like that. So yeah. Oh my God! But Rob, the highlight of the weekend.
Go on.
So I went to a dance fit class with my mum.
Oh, love it.
And a lot of lovely ladies in their, 60s, 70s. One was even in her 80s. And we were dancing to Reggaeton Lento.
Nice. Now, is your mum like a super hip shaking groover and you were the embarrassment? Or is it vice versa? Because I know if I took my mum to one, everyone would go, oh, you took your mum. But the reality would be that she's got the moves and I really haven't.
I was definitely worse than her.
Love it.
It was absolutely hilarious. And the instructor was like, come on, ladies, let's pout. Come on. So it was a room full of lovely ladies, pouting to pop music and moving. It was amazing. It was the highlight of my weekend, Rob.
That's great. Well, the highlight of my weekend was realising that it's still light at 5 o'clock.
Yes,
that we're into February. It was the official first day yesterday where I looked up and went, it's still light.
Yeah.
So spring's on the way, everybody.
Yes. You always say Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit earlier. Maybe because we had a couple of sunny days. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe you just notice it, don't you, if it's not cloudy.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently we're getting into minus figures again tomorrow, so there we go.
Yeah, it's going to snow again.
Yeah, exactly. Rob, we need to tell everyone that coming up on this episode of the podcast, we have a brilliant interview with you with Dave Scott, 6 times Ironman world champion. Caught up with him a couple of weeks ago. Superb value. So really do. You're going to love it. Listen out for it. And let us know what you think about it.
Good stuff. Dave Scott, the legend. So we've had Dave Scott and Mark Allen on now. We need to track down Tinley and Molina, don't we, to get the big 4?
That's over to you. I'm going to let you do that. I'm going to task you with that one, Rob.
That's it. I'll be hunting them out. We should be able to get Molina somehow, shouldn't we? The boys at IM Talk could put us in contact, I'm sure.
I'm leaving it to you.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right. So coming up on the show then, we've got the interview with Dave Scott, as you've mentioned. We've got results from the weekend. We've got Coach's Couch, and we've got some news. Bit of news about Mr. Gomez, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. Heading down under. It's cool news. I like it.
Yes. But before the news from Mr. Gomez, we have news from our results section, which is sponsored by our friends precisionhydration.com. So if you have, like me, Hells, been down to, I've been really struggling with motivation to get myself biking, I'll be honest with you. And I thought, I'm going to go to a spin class. I'm going to take the devil's sixpence. I'm going to go to a spin class and just get shouted at to go and do some exercise. And it was great. It worked really well. But I didn't take a drinks bottle with Precision Hydration with me, which I always have on the turbo here. And you know, when you get to like the last 10 minutes of the spin class and it was really hard intervals, and you start to get that little twitchy feeling in the bottom of your calf.
Yeah, that going on.
I had proper calf lock at the end of it. All it took with me was one session without any electrolytes in the water bottle. And just as the lady's going, right, everybody get down off your bikes, and lovely lady instructor getting everyone to do stretches, my left calf locks up and I nearly jumped through the roof. It was awful.
So you've had now this amazing embarrassment at yoga, and now your spin class.
Live and don't learn, Hells. That's me. Yeah. It's like I basically need to get some kind of shorts that have got they've got their salt capsules sewn into the lining, like the SAS used to carry gold bullion around in their trousers to buy them way out of trouble.
I think you just need a drip.
I need a blister pack of those salt tablets everywhere I go.
Yeah, you need a drip.
So anyway, if you, like me, suffer from cramp, get yourself on it. Precisionhydration.com are the way to go for all of your hydration needs. They've got all kinds of individually strengthened hydration products for you. And they've also got online sweat tests and in-person sweat tests that you can go and you can take the online one on the website. You can go and visit them in person to have your sweat tested. If, like me, it turns out, you get a lot of cramp, you're probably a freak like me. That could be their strap line, couldn't it, Hells? If you get a lot of cramp, you're probably a freak like Rob.
Yeah. Rob, they were in Chester again this week as well, weren't they?
Yes, with one of their hydration workshops, I believe.
Yes, with Chester Tri Club. And I heard lots back from there as well, positive reports. So if you do want them to visit your Tri Club or anything like that, then just drop them a line. Lovely people.
It's a no-brainer for people like us who have got to deal with this stuff all the time. And how many people do we know they get horrendous cramps when they jump into the pool after being on the bike or running? So, any Tri Club, if you go, here's a potential solution for the fact that you're screaming like a stuck pig at the end of the pool, people are probably going to want to come to a hydration workshop, aren't they?
Yeah. So there we go. Right, Rob, shall we start off in Dubai?
Let's start off in Dubai. The Dubai 70.3 was this weekend, and I'm just in awe, Hells, of this performance. Yes. And especially so at the time as I was reading it. I think there's rumours that the run course was perhaps a little bit short, but at the time when I saw these splits come through, I was like, you have got to be kidding.
Incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah. So if you haven't seen the results yet, the win in the men's race was taken by Ali Brownlee, who we're pleased to announce is firmly back out of the gym after 6 months of strength and conditioning work and rehab to get over this injury. Let's read out the splits. It was a 22-minute swim, a 1:58 bike, and then a 69-minute half marathon to finish in 3:35 overall.
It is just scary, isn't it?
Sub 2 on the bike is just, I mean, I know it's smooth tarmac and it's the fast course, but it was windy, and to go sub 2 on any bike course is just unreal, isn't it?
He is just superb, and you kind of like run out of words to describe him and Gomez, to be honest, don't you? Because it's just, it is just, wow, sublime, basically.
Yeah.
And Robbie said he didn't even feel that good on the swim, and he had a couple of bad patches on the bike, but he did say that he just felt great on that run, and actually enjoyed the last 10 to 18k.
Well, he went through the 10k mark in 31 minutes on the splits thing. 31-minute opening 10k. Imagine trying to run Ali Brownlee down and realising he's just turned in a 31-minute 10k, and then he's eased back and enjoyed the last 11 kilometres of the run. It's bonkers. It's great stuff with him on the bike as well. I don't know if you've seen the videos that Ironman Live put up, but he's been working with, is it Dan?
Yep.
Dan Bigham? Yep. Dan Bingham? Can't remember how you... Dan Bigham, isn't it? And he's got a really aggressive looking aero position with his handspin here. It looks nothing like he did on the Aldi advert when they had him riding next to Sebi Kienle. His hands are right up in the air, and he looks a lot like Matt Botterill now in that kind of classic new hands high position. So he's obviously doing something right.
He looks really, really smooth, doesn't he? And Rob, he's going to be competing at the Commonwealth Games to try to defend his titles. That'll be in April, and then one of his other goals obviously this year is to win the Ironman 70.3 World Championship, and so we will hear what Dave Scott thinks of Ali Brownlee in that interview as well, so keep on listening out for that one. But yeah, it's just ridiculously impressive. So Ali Brownlee takes the win in 3:35 ahead of Sven Riederer in 3:42, so 7 minutes down. And just behind him was his Swiss compatriot Rudi Wild. So that was a 1-2-3 in the men's race. And then Robson more super duper fast running in the women's race. So Anne Haug, who former ITU triathlete, took the win there with what did she did a 1:14, didn't she? 1:14 run split. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then Sarah Lewis, GB, did a 1:18 run split. So she was second in 4:05, ahead of Holly Lawrence, who finished in 4:07. And then we should say as well, Kim Morrison 6th in 4:16 and Nikki Bartlett 7th in 4:20. So solid season openers for them as well. The bike, Rob, Holly Lawrence led, didn't she, off that bike?
Yeah, and again, I think the ladies rode, 2:14, 2:13, something like that from memory. I can't find it on the results sheet at the minute, but again, it's faster than 40k an hour.
Yeah.
Which is, it used to be the gold standard in the men's race. And I don't say that to be sexist. I say it to show how much the sport's moved on. Dead impressive.
Yeah, it's honestly, so yeah, it just looked like a really, really sort of solid season opening and a really exciting opening race of the season for those athletes out in Dubai.
Yeah, and it's great to think as well, it's, we've got to remember, it's the end of January. Essentially, people are going out here to race as like, we're going out for a trip to the warm and we'll do a race at the end of the week. I don't think there's anybody going to be in sparkling red hot shape in this time of year, is there? So to be turning those kind of times out, you've got to wonder what sort of times they'd be turning out if they rocked up in peak physical condition to do that course. Yeah,
that would be an interesting point.
Terrifying.
Yeah, but sadly you can't have that race in, I don't know, June, July. It would just be, if you had it there in July. Woo, yeah, that wouldn't happen, would it?
No, not at all. All right, that was pretty much it for the results for this week, but great that there's some big names racing, hey?
Yes, it's good. It's good to be able to chat about some decent races again. Woohoo!
Yeah, it's good to get some back on. That's great. All right, over to Coach's Couch then. We have had a question sent in from Chris Barry, and I absolutely love this, Hells. I absolutely love it. It's so beautifully written.
Chris says, something has made itself aware to me, and I'm not sure if it's true or someone's having me on. When in a race, I've been told people relieve themselves while on the bike or running. Is this true? And how common is it? Is it done in all distances too?
I love the innocence of this question. It's great, isn't it?
I like the careful wording of it, rather than just, do people really pee on the bike and on the fly on the run?
Do people really pee in their own shorts in this sport? Right. So then, Chris, here's the horrific truth. Traditionally, the answer to this would always have been yes. It would always have been just wee as you go along, and if you're in an Ironman, you're going to be out there for 6 hours, and you're going to need to go 2 or 3 times if you're well hydrated, and you don't want to lose time, so just kind of do it. And everybody always kind of followed this advice without thinking about it too much. And when you do actually stop and think about it, unless you're in the hunt for Kona slots, there's really no excuse to not get off your bike and go for a wee in a porta potty, is there? So things have changed recently, and it is now, I don't know what the phrase is for this, Hells, illegal, penaltyable, for you get given a penalty or possibly even disqualified for doing it these days. Never used to be. It used to quite commonly see all of a sudden there'd be water spraying off the legs of the athlete in front of you as you were riding along, and then they'd spray themselves down with water. And so we cannot recommend that you do it these days, because if somebody reports you, there's every chance you'll get disqualified. So I found this great article by Jimmy Riccatello, who is the head referee from Ironman.
What does Jimmy say, Rob?
Jimmy says, let me start by saying that public urination is illegal in all 50 states. Which kind of does, it does put it in perspective, doesn't it? It's illegal to do it in America. Extreme cases of public urination may even result in being charged with indecent exposure or public lewdness, which in turn may require the person to register as a sex offender. Now,
what?
Yeah, well, quite. Even if the event or federation does not have a specific rule that prohibits peeing during a race, athletes who are witnessed in the race by a referee peeing in public may still be cited for public nudity. So, so the moral of the story here is you definitely don't want to do it in America, because you might end up with a criminal record by the look of things.
Don't. No.
He winds up by saying, as a parent of 2 young children, I can't believe that I actually have to say this to adults. None of the examples of peeing in public are ever acceptable, even if you paid $1 million for your race entry. So I think lots of people still do it. And I think you will probably find that at the pointy end of the age group field, people are not going to be stopping and wasting a couple of minutes to go to the porta potty. But if you get seen, you're taking the risk of getting disqualified or a time penalty or whatever. So, yeah, the landscape has changed, hasn't it, Helen? It's very different advice to what we used to give out, which was basically just kind of do it because everybody does. It's a very different thing to think about.
Oh, well, yes. I was trying to think. What did I do in Wales? I didn't. Oh, it was really, really cold, wasn't it? So I didn't get off the bike to pee in Wales. I didn't pee on the bike either.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good. I like that. Let's stay with that answer.
Okay.
Helen cannot remember her whereabouts on the afternoon of the 11th of September. I'm sorry, Your Honour. No video footage appears to exist.
No, I definitely went in T2 and I definitely went on the run.
Well, here's an interesting anecdote as well. I believe that the 70.3 and then became Ironman UK, the original course, was down at Sherborne Castle, and there were rumours that there were so many athletes, like on the run, just peeing against trees and stuff, that the landowners just thought it was horrible and didn't want people there anymore. Now, how much truth there is to the rumour, I don't know, but it was fairly well publicised at the time that, I can't remember who it was owned the place, but the Lord of Sherborne or whoever just thought it was disgusting that all these lycra-clad people were walking around peeing all over his estate. You can kind of see his point if it's land that you own.
It is, yeah.
2,000 people rock up and wheel in your garden. It's not really that nice, is it?
Ahead of the London Marathon, when they have, it doesn't seem like quite as many toilets as you would probably want, and
Yeah.
everyone is lining up, and you get to the point whereby you're like, right, well, I've got to go take my bag to that truck, or else that truck is going. So, okay, I'm just gonna have to come out this queue, but I still need the loo.
Yeah.
And then, what, I don't know, sometimes it is what you meant to do, but then it's like, no, that is pretty minging, isn't it? Great North Run, all these kind of things. When you got to go, you've got to go, basically.
Yeah. And if you get seen, you get DQ'd. So be aware, listeners. Especially if you're racing in America, looks like it's not even frowned upon anymore. It's very definitely not the done thing, isn't it?
I'm going to ask Heather Jackson about it, Rob. I'm going to be speaking to her soon. I'm going to ask her.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there we go. Thought I'd just let you know on that one. If you have a question for Coach's Couch, then just drop us a line. You can email help@oxygenaddict.com, or you can send us a tweet. We are at OHI Podcast, or you can find us on Facebook as well. Send them in.
Yes, indeed. And if you are looking for a bit of triathlon training advice, you can get a free 2-week sample training plan from Team Oxygen Addict for just £1 if you send an email to help@oxygenaddict.com. We'll sort you out and give you something to help structure your training. All right, Hells, it's time. I'm excited. It's time for today's interview of the week.
With Dave Scott. This will be 40 minutes of your time. Very, very well spent. Listen and learn. Dave Scott, it's a pleasure to welcome you onto the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. I always start off by asking people how they are. So I'm going to start with a different question today. And my different question is going to be, why is your nickname The Man?
Well, I'm not really sure, Helen. I think it originally came from one of my co-competitors, Scott Tinley. And he was being interviewed, I think, at the time, this is my understanding. And they said, well, what do you think about Dave Scott and his opportunity maybe to win Kona again? I think it's somewhere in the series of Kona races that I did. And Scott said, he's the man. In other words, he's perpetually ready, which I was not, but I think it was a compliment at the side. So it sort of has stuck with me over the years.
You are known as being, the person who just trained and trained and trained and trained ridiculously hard. Did that come from parents, or did that come from you within, or society? Where did that come from?
I don't know, Helen. I think I got a loose nut. I'm not really sure. I kind of had that, innate desire, compassion when I was a kid. It was sort of reflective on everything. I would get nervous for tests and exams, and I thought, I've got to really prepare well and do as best I can. And then athletically, I was always kind of obsessed with a certain degree that, at least allowed me to be calm. And so I developed sort of a knack, partly because maybe no one else was willing to do it with me, to do it on my own. I was involved in team sports, so I played basketball, which a lot of people don't know, and I swam and played water polo as well through high school, college, and but I always had kind of this innate ability to just say, okay, here we go. And I kind of look at a time block and say, I can last for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or 5 hours, and so there really wasn't a psychological recipe. I just seemed to have the will to do it.
Was there something about being able to train in that solitude, though, did you love your own company?
I think there's good and bad with it. This question has been phrased in many ways, many times. When I first started my career, there wasn't an opportunity to work out with other triathletes. I was the only one. I lived in a community of about 30,000 at the time, Davis, California. And so when I started this triathlon endeavor, there wasn't another person I could train with. And I had a close friend who actually talked me into doing the Ironman in 1980, and he's a physician. And so I would try to bring him over we were about 30K apart, and I'd say, hey, Mike, come on over so I can wear you down on the weekends. So I had him, but I think there were a lot of times and a lot of moments where the bar was too high. and the standard was too high. And so, psychologically, when you're sort of dwelling on your last workout, and it didn't perform as well, I found that when I would set that standard so high, it became debilitating at time. It was unhealthy. And as my career progressed and I, kind of withstood the test of time, I liked having the opportunity to work out with other people, and certainly swimming and cycling at times when I had other folks, that really made it fly by easy. And I coach people, and a lot of times when I feel like, well, boy, I've really designed the perfect program, but I ask them, do you have a group that you can work out with? I would throw my workout away and just say, maybe we can wiggle in what I'm prescribing, but I'd sure like you to work out with these other people. And the other side of it, Helen, is I think it's important for people to have other interests. And so when you're myopically focused on just one thing, whether it's training or racing, and even though I said, I was thinking about my last workout, I never really thought I'd be a professional triathlete. So I was always a teacher, a coach on the side, which allowed me to worry about someone else.
And that is it. You did do all the coaching before you even did triathlon, didn't you?
That's correct. Yeah, I started when I was actually a young teenager and started teaching swimming, and then I kind of gravitated into coaching swimming, and I have a background in exercise physiology, so I was always interested in kinesiology and muscular movement and how the energy systems and how the body works, and then segued that into nutrition as well. And so, my passion was that part academically, and my sideline other passion was being an athlete. So they did work as a whole for a large part of it, but I'm not deflecting. There were times where I had kind of a dark cloud hanging over my head because as I said, that maybe the standard was too high.
When you go back to Kona now, what feelings do you have being there?
Well, I'm an old guy now, so I've been there a lot of times. I mean, I have a camp. This is the third year at the Four Seasons. I have 4 camps, so I'm over there. I'm going over there for Lava Man. I go over there for Ironman Week. We just shot some videos. So I was there 7 times this last year, 17, and with an equal number coming up in 2018. When I'm there for Ironman Week, I still feel a lot of the same energy, and I sense the anxiety with the athletes. I'm not a threat to the athletes. They're looking at me like I'm a dinosaur. So I would say I have pretty good rapport with the men and the women, amateurs and the cream of the crop. So that's kind of a nice thing, I guess. But I always want to try to go a little bit deeper into their mindset, and I'm always asked this when I'm over there and prior to, who can win this race? As if I have the crystal ball, and I hate the question. I just can't stand the question because I have no idea. But I also sort of deflect the question. I said, well, there's really a small handful of men and women, very small, that really have the potential to win the big one. And they said, well, how about if they've won Ironman this and that? And I said, well, that's great. But I said, I don't know if they have the psychological fortitude, without mentioning names. I kind of sense that. I'm not really sure what it is, and I have sensed that for a long time as a coach. A lot of the professional athletes are very gifted because genetically they've got the right programming, but they don't have the right mindset. So I see amateurs that work harder than a lot of the professionals, but they just don't have the genetic tools. So anyway, back to your question, I love the atmosphere at Kona. It's become a very busy week for me, just involved with many companies and activities every single day. So by the time I get home, I feel like I've aged about 14 more years. But always looking forward to it.
You mentioned there about the crystal ball and everything like that, but there is a good bit of the crystal ball, which I'm not going to ask you that who do you think will win, next year. We're way too far out anyway. But there is a certain Javier Gomez who has said that he's going to, he wants to race in Kona in 2018. What traits do you admire in his racing and his athleticism. And does it excite you, the fact that he will be there? You know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think he's just, a sensational athlete, and I've seen him race several times. I did see him at 70.3 Worlds in Chattanooga this past year, and he came from behind in a very, very difficult, challenging run, hilly run. He ran 1:10 off the bike, which was extraordinary. That's a magnificent time. And I've seen him video-wise when he's racing the great Brownlee brothers, and just seen him at different times where he doesn't seem to have a psychological dent. He's very tenacious. So even when the best are racing, he's able to bring out his best. Looking at Kona, if there's an inherent weakness, it's really it can become a tactical asset to him. He's a very strong swimmer. He's going to get out with the lead group. There are a lot of horses in the men's field that are sensational on the bike, and they have to be, because they have to wear down the top runners. Jan Fernandom did not have a great race last year. We all know that. He's a great runner, and obviously has raced against Javier as well. But there's some tremendous cyclists that I think have more horsepower than Javier. So there may be a point where he has to say, I've got to back off. I've got to be like Patrick Lang, who won this year, be confident in my run because I am a great runner, and he should say that. And I think a lot of the athletes don't have the confidence in their run, and that's unfortunate, because I see them race well in other distances and also other Ironman races. Javier has confidence, and I think his confidence is his huge asset going into Ironman Kona as a rookie. I think that, we look at, could he win it the first time? It's analogous to Chrissy. I didn't know her name. I was covering the race that year when Chrissy won. I kept fouling up her name. I said, I've never heard of this woman, but boy, she looked magnificent. And I think Javier, as a known entity, everyone has great respect for him. He is certainly in the top three, as you better watch out.
What did you make of Lionel Sanders' race this year?
Lionel Sanders is, he's a workhorse. I think maybe to a fault he may race a little bit too much. I'm not coaching him. He obviously had a great result at the end. He didn't win, but second was fantastic. And I think he's a pretty savvy runner, or a savvy athlete, excuse me. And he did what he had to do on the bike to break up the harmony of the bike, and he did that at Kauai High. So there was about 60K left in the ride, and he smashed some people by putting out some high watts for about 5 minutes, and that took the thunder out of a lot of the athletes' legs. Patrick Lang again played his own cards and had quite a deficit to make up, but he did it. Lionel Sanders, I think, is extremely gifted. I have told Lionel, and he has mentioned this in a sort of a public comment, that I don't think he's as symmetrical as he could be. And looking at him from a biomechanical standpoint, he has a real clippity-clop style when he runs. Particularly, it was very apparent in Kona. And he's very, very weak in his gluteals. And I pointed this out to him quite a while back, actually after the 2016 or prior to the 2016 race. I said, whomever you're working with, pay attention to this, because he's an amazing athlete. He's very strong in his quads. Mentally, he's a Wolverine, and he's incredible. And I think I have great admiration for him. I always want the best men and the best women to have their best day in Kona, and a lot of them come in there with a lot of niggling issues or weaknesses. That's something that he needs to pay attention to. And I think he could be a dominant factor for years to come.
You obviously get a lot of questions from age group, as you mentioned that off the air. We've got some to come, but do you get a few questions as well? Does the likes of Gomez or Frodeno, do they email you and say, Dave, could you give me some advice to them?
I haven't. The ones that you just recited, I'll say no. When I have run into them, they're kind of reaching out a little bit for some advice. But I think, for really a one-on-one good advice. You have to take time. You have to think about, gee, I want to ask this guy, whether it's me or someone else. And I have had a couple of the champions in the past reach out to me and just say, I think I need some guidance. One of the areas is this mobility, stretching, and strength area, which I think a lot of the athletes neglect, both genders, and that's a problem. And then also, I think a lot of them, and I'm saying this on the surface because I don't know their programs, I think a lot of them end up getting in phenomenal shape in the early part of the year, and they're trying to hold it too long. And they end up going too long, and they wear themselves out. So we don't see the sharpness that I'd like to see. And I think part of it is understanding energy systems and physiology, and also the individual athlete. We're all different. So I have had coaches reach out to me and say, hey, what do you think? What am I doing? I don't have an ego involved in it because I'm not interested. I'm not coaching professional athletes right now. So, I just, again, as I told you, Helen, I just want them to go fast. And I've seen this, unfortunate attrition in the women's field, I think, for the same thing. And Daniela, rose to the top. But even when Marinda was second a couple of years back, you're seeing these women that are extraordinary. They're just decimated. So collectively in Kona, the athletes as a whole, the pros, are not all ready to race well. And it's partly the point system that's required. I think a lot of them are over racing a little bit. They don't have a choice. And, the other part, are they really putting their program together? So in a long-winded answer, I'm glad to help.
What do you make of are you glad that it's going back to a different qualifying system?
Yeah, I have read it. I'm not privy to all the factors, but I think it's really important that the management really looks at that. And one of the things I do not like and have not liked is when you have a world champion and they're using this word, they have to re-qualify. That's absolutely utter nonsense. So anyone on the outside field will never say, hey, we've got the world champion marathon runner, you've got to re-qualify a month and a half later to what? To do what? The whole question is, there's a giant question mark. What do they have to show? So I think when that is a mandate, that really sets the sport back. I don't like it at all, and I think it jeopardizes the athlete's potential career by having them race on top of world championships just to fill the quota. So I think their WTC is, and I work with them, is moving in the right direction. I'd like to see that, and I think they do need the athletes' input as well, because ultimately they want the best athletes at their races. They want the 70.3 World Championships to be really reflective of the best in the world, and the same thing in Kona. So, I'm hoping we can kind of get back to that.
You mentioned the best athletes in the world. One of them more over the Olympic distance, but also he showed that he's pretty good when he did the half this year, last year even. Ali Brownlee, do you want to see him in Kona racing against Gomez?
Well, I think both the Brownlee brothers are sensational, and Alistar is. I've never met him personally. I have admired him from afar as an ex-athlete, and I guess probably my greatest admiration for him, and I know that he has been labeled different things by his competitors that are not favorable. What I like about him is he is very tenacious, and he dictates the race. He goes out hard on the swim. If someone wants to stay with me, fine. And then on the bike, he's just relentless. And coming off the run, it's no different. The first 2K, when you're running 3 minutes or under for those first 2K, it's pretty sensational. So, he knows how to dig down to the bottom of that and just basically mentally annihilate his competitors. So I think if he steps up, we've got Gomez and some of the other ITU racers, which I have always felt you have to maintain that top end. And I did this with Chrissy's program, with Craig Alexander as well. I said, we've got to keep that top end. Don't ever lose that. Don't think distance is going to make you better. That's what I fear with some of the ITU athletes coming up. I know both the Brownlees, Alistar, they do a fairly big volume, and I would say don't do any more. You'll do fine.
Do you think he's too fragile to succeed at the Ironman distance?
Well, I don't know what fragile really means. I mean, you can look at his form. I know he's had some injuries. Javier, ended up breaking a bone. I think we're all vulnerable in a lot of different ways, and a lot of times injuries creep up when you don't know they're going to be there. I don't know his training program. I would say that he better maintain the same mobility that he has because he's been very successful. And there's a tendency as you go through your career and you age that even if you lose a couple millimeters, particularly in your shoulder girdle or your thoracic spine or your hips, those are the big three, you don't want to. You want to be able to do that because that creates a maximal firing pattern for those muscles around you, for example, on your hip. It's very complex, but you really want your quad and your hip flexors and your glute to all work in harmony, and that affects your lower legs and your feet. So, I would say make sure you're staying on that. Again, I don't know what he's doing. So I think the fragile part is he has a tendency to run very high up on his forefoot. So when you look at him biomechanically, can he maintain that same form and can he run X speed off the bike for a longer distance? I think he's proven himself in a few of the 70.3 races, but there's a big step up and a big slowdown in what we're seeing in the Ironman distance, particularly in Kona. And I have said this many times, Helen. I think both the men and the women have not run to their capabilities in Kona. The men right now are a lot faster than me. But the run times are not a lot faster than what Mark and I did way back when. Well, they should be. They should be a lot faster. The men should be running low 230s. The women should be running the 240s. And I'd love to see that, not in another Ironman race, but in Kona.
And why do you think that is? Why are the men not running faster? Why did you and Mark manage to get such fast times?
I think one, it was confidence. I think, and not overconfidence. It was just, I think I can run 3:45K or 6-minute pace. That's 2:37. We laugh about it now. There was a press conference before '89, and I was asked this question: what do you think you can do? And I said, well, I'm always about 50 minutes on the swim. I seem pretty consistent. I'll probably do that again. The bike, at the time, the technology was pretty rudimentary, and I kept thinking, gee, I could ride 40K an hour. That's not too hard. That's 4:37, I think, 6. And then the run, I said, well, I can run 6-minute miles or 3:45Ks, and that's 2:37. And everyone else in the audience, my competitors, all just said, oh, my God, the race is over. I wasn't saying it as, gee, I'm really something. I'm waving my fist. I'm going to smash you guys. I think Mark, we've laughed about this. I think he caught his breath, but he said, I got to be with Dave. I can do this too. And I think one was confidence. Two, we raced at different distances. It wasn't just solely Ironman. And for all the athletes moving up, whether it's Alistair or Javier or Jan, I think they need to mix it up still. I would do some Olympic distance races or something a little bit shorter and not do too many 70.3s and be very careful about their Ironman selection and how close those are, maybe 2 a year. So I was very specific in the races that I wanted to race. Ironman, I did Kona, I did Japan, and one in Sweden. People ask how many Ironman races have you done? Well, 10 times in Kona, I won 6 times. I was second 3 times, and I was 5th once. And that was, they're kind of dumbfounded. Well, how about the other ones? Well, I did 2 in Japan and 1 in Sweden, so I did 13. Other athletes have done. Meredith Kessler said she's done 50 or something. I thought, well, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say probably like 13 in a year or something. But I guess that's part of the WTC as well. And, their policy of qualification would have forced athletes to race more anyway.
Yeah, and I think you just need to space that out. So if the requirement is a requirement and you're all playing in the same field, the same game, again, dictated or mandated by the point system. Well, just don't be overzealous that you can always be ready every weekend. And again, this comes back to my comment about Lionel Sanders. Looking at his resume, he races a lot, and I think it's too much. Daniela, I think she races too much. So, but if someone's on the outside, well, how can you be critical of them? I said, well, I don't think Daniela had her best race and she didn't have her best race in Rote as well, and she didn't in Kona. Well, I wanted her to race well. I mean, she's extraordinary. So, I guess coming back to your question, that confidence was huge, Helen. I think when we were together, it was, it wasn't like, gee, I'm going to die. I just kept thinking, well, I'm going to make my move on Mark at this point. He had another plan. So, we were able to kind of extract a pretty good day for each other.
Would you have loved to have seen Chrissy at her peak racing against Daniela?
Yeah, I mean, the most disheartening thing about Chrissy and her career for me as a coach, and just wanted to see her really exploit her talents, was really the most sensational, one of the most sensational racing days in the history of our sport, when she went down, crashed. The irony is she actually crashed on my son crashed on her. They were going to go out and ride. Drew had qualified, my son had qualified for Kona for the first time. He was a young guy. Chrissy, all of her numbers, she was in much better shape. And really this was kind of the last ride together. Well, all of a sudden there was 3 or 4 or 5 people that went out on that ride. She kind of rolled her tire, went down, and you know her history. I mean, she was a mess. And it was really a countdown from 14 days before the race. Okay, how is she on day 13? Well, she was worse. Day 12, she's back in the gym, and I get a call from Tom, her fiance at the time, husband now, and she said, Chrissy is trembling. I think she's infected. Tom and I picked her up. We had a blanket on her. She was in the lobby. She was a mess. Should have been in the hospital. We picked her up, put her in the car. She's sobbing. Tom is pretty stoic. I'm just devastated, thinking, okay, I know she's not going to pull out of this race, and this is day 12. So what can we do on 11:10? It was really every day just kind of piecing it together. So your question, she had a miraculous race that year, and I remember telling her before the gun went off, I said, there's going to be some moment on that race, I don't know where you're going to have to pick your spot. And really her spot was, she was so far back on the swim. Miranda was out of the water first, obviously her biggest rival. And she rode okay, caught Miranda, but had 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Ended up putting almost 5.5 minutes, that's the gap, on the run, because she went out so fast on the run. I said, here it is. Can you hang on? And then Miranda whittled it back down really to the deficit off the bike. It was 2 minutes and something at the end. I mean, Christy was a mess. It was a heroic day. She was capable, I felt, that year, because conditions were pretty good, that if she was on, she would have gone around 8:40, maybe 8:30 something in Kona. And she didn't have that opportunity to do that.
And I can see now your face. We've got the video on that still. Like, you would have loved to have seen her do that.
Of course, because she was capable of doing it. And I think there's a lot of people that forecast this or shoulda, coulda, woulda. Well, golly, it was kind of at the time where you could post pictures on the internet, and people kind of followed her. And even 3 days before the race, and I don't know if this was public, but I know she wouldn't mind me saying this. She said, "Dave, I feel like I have a heart attack. My pec is so sore." She goes to the emergency room in Kona, and they said, you just strained, I think, her pec minor. Probably not a good idea to swim right now. And so she didn't swim Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And, as a result of that, she, I'm thinking, oh, my God, she's barely been able to walk, let alone ride her bike. Now she's going to try to swim. That was just a mess. It was a crazy day. So, yeah,
insane.
Anyway.
Amazing.
Yeah, but a remarkable day, a phenomenal day, incredible day for her and for the sport.
And does that remain one of your highlights of Hawaii and Kona as well? Or is Iron War up there, or when you finished second? Not the Iron War year, the other year.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the years that I raced. I mean, I certainly remember the 6, but I also remember the circumstances of the other races where I didn't win. And the 89 when I raced the Mark, kind of going into that race, I felt pretty fit. And I knew Mark was strong. We actually had collided in Australia in about a 3/4 distance, equal to Nice at the time. It was about a 3.5K, I think, swim, and historians would know this. It was a 130K bike and a 30K run, and I was having a great day. I had a big lead, about 4 minutes, and Mark caught me on the run. And one of the most magnificent runs I think ever in the history of the sport. He ran one. I remember because someone came up to me and they said, he ran 138 and you ran 141 off the bike for that 30K. I said, well, that seems pretty decent. Not good enough for me, but. So I knew confidence-wise that he was ready. He had a number of situations where he just didn't shine in Kona, and he can say whatever he wants to say, but he didn't win. And so we were ready to battle, and it just turned out to be this epic battle. So I think of that day I got second. It bothers me immensely that I think, tactically I could have done something a little bit different, but, really it was a pretty extraordinary day. And then 94, when I came back when I was 40, and there was kind of a 5-year hiatus from the 89 race to 94. And, I was kind of removed from the sport. I did a couple of the short races, but nothing of any stature. And so when I came back, I think people were kind of thinking, I wonder if he can still do it. But no, he's 40, probably not. But I probably put a little bit of worry in some people's minds, and I got close.
Right, Dave, we're going to crack on with some listener questions now. So we're going to stick in the 40s theme. So Nikki Crown says, help needed. At 46, I have challenged myself to do my first triathlon this year. Where do I start? There's one for you.
Well, that's a magnificently big question. I think the biggest thing is you need to look at your weekly schedule. What's realistic? How many minutes, hours can you allocate on each day, and be very specific. And then from there, put down the actual time so it becomes part of your regimen. That if your regimen is to go to work and you've got kids and you've got all these other things, does the workout really work? Can you really put that in? And I think a lot of people aren't realistic. So those two things are kind of paramount to start with. The third one, if you can get aligned with a group, which we talked about at the outset, I think that's helpful. Maybe there's a run group or a swim group. And number 4, if you have an opportunity to work with a coach, they can put together your program. So, I look at someone 46 who hasn't even started, and I think, you got an unlimited amount of potential. What are you waiting for?
Love it. There was another one, actually. Lindsay Beale says, training and racing over 55. Do cycling miles make up for running miles? And will fast running with walking be enough to keep fitness for a 70.3?
Well, I think the second half of her answer, which she answered herself, is what is the wise thing. So it's kind of a dichotomy. She says, if I go longer on the bike, I'm going to go faster. But if I go fast on the run and I have walking with it, is that a good trade-off? I think what she's doing on the run is the right thing, because there is great physiological adaptation all the way across the board. And it's also good health parameters for someone who's 55 and even younger than that. And I talk about this all the time without going into detail, that the higher intensity training, so let me give it kind of a definition. If she's doing, and again, this pertains to everyone, kind of repeats between 25 seconds to 2 minutes, higher intensity, and you're getting in a block where you basically have a equal amount of recovery, or even double that, or 3 times that, depending on the weather conditions and also fitness. So I'll give you a real example. Let's say I'm doing 6 times a minute and a half. So I've got 6 times a minute and a half, and I'm going to take 2 minutes recovery in between. So it's really 6 times 3.5. So I've got roughly a 20-plus minute segment within maybe that workout. So the rest of it's aerobic, but then I've got a higher intensity block. The return on this is magnificent, because it actually a number of things. It stimulates these fast twitch muscle fibers, which a lot of people don't do, even the younger ones. She's 55. She should do this. It'll help her bone mass, her lean muscle tissue. It helps glucose sensitivity, insulin sensitivity. You get a post-metabolic burn. It's kind of magic. So she's doing it on the run because she doesn't have a choice. She's doing a higher intensity. Do that on the run. Put that in twice or 3 times a week, where you're doing segments, total harder segments. anywhere between about 12 minutes up to about 30 for the athletes and these they might be in 2 or 3 segments, but do that on the bike. Mileage, over distance mileage, she's going to get slower. Don't do that.
Good answer. We like this. There's another sort of training question. So, what is your opinion on little and often in the pool? So, 4 to 6 days a week, maybe around 30 minutes unstructured, against longer structured sessions, fewer times per week.
I think it parallels what I just said. I think an athlete that has 30 minutes and only can allocate 30 minutes, and they include a little bit of a higher intensity segments in that 30 minutes, will really reap the benefits, as opposed to someone who puts on a pull buoy, paddles, floats through their workout and said, gee, I just did 2K on a straight swim. I feel great. And I'm going, you might as well just read a book in that chair over there, because the metabolic return isn't great. The physiological adaptation isn't great. So I would err on the athlete that has the shorter side. However, if they're doing a 70.3 or Ironman distance on the swim, because the distance is not equitable, I think it's quite favorable to do longer segments or a longer swim where you're bringing up the intensity on it. And I'll just come back to Christy and Craig. When they were in my swim workouts, partly because of the number of people, we never did 4K straight. Never, not one time. They might have done it on their own, but not with me. We always did short rest interval segments, or we did long ones, which I just described, at a high end. And we did a lot of VO2 swim segments, particularly the last 7 weeks leading up to Kona, so that they would have the highest power output. We did this on the bike as well, and I thought it was really paramount for their success. I still believe in this with other athletes that I coach, that we need to bring up the higher intensity. Don't introduce it the last week before your race. Big mistake. So again, if this athlete that has 30-minute sessions can wiggle in a longer one, it might be every 10 days or every 2 weeks, that would be a great compromise, as opposed to someone who's doing 80 minutes in a long block and they're doing it all aerobically.
DJC asks something sort of fairly similar on the bike. So what are the ideal indoor biking sessions to do during the European winter? I think you've touched on that as well. Yeah,
I would just say that as a segue into longer segments, and I gave an example. I'll try to make this short, Helen. Even doing 6 times a minute and a half. Let's use the same one that I just did, but you can mix those up, and it might be 2 times 30, 2 times 2 minutes, 4 times 40. 4 times a minute and a half. You can I like to keep people guessing, so I don't always like to do a standard set. The nice thing on the bike is that you can change the muscle recruitment by sliding a little bit fore and aft on the seat. You can come in and out of your saddle. You can implement low gear, fast legs, and you can also implement bigger gear seated and standing. And so now you're changing that recruitment. So the bike, during the off season, doing those 5 different positions that are just in variable gearing is really, really key. And adding this high intensity in those different gears, so you're not just picking your choice gear or time trial gear all the time. You can really expedite your training in the off season.
One more to do with mental strength, mental strategies. What do you use as motivation in training sessions? Do you visualize your racing against your competitors? Did you visualize sort of setting personal bests? And why do you think that worked for you?
Well, that's a darn good question. I think no one is immune to not thinking about the competitors, but if you're thinking about, gee, what are they doing, or I'm not really on my day, and I bet I bet Javier Gomez is going faster, or Mark Allen's going faster during my day. I never really thought about that. I don't know if I ever thought about that one time. I'm thinking, gee, he's in great shape, he had a good race. But during my training sessions, for me, it was always segmented into pieces, just like I would do an Ironman race. I never did Kona thinking, gee, I've got 2 miles down on the bike and I've got 110 to go. I would always, break that up into pieces. And so I had a visual roadmap of it. And in training sessions, that's exact same thing that I would do. If I had a 3.5 hour ride and I had 3 segments that were 25 minutes each and I'm changing the interval on them, I wouldn't think, gee, I hope I can get through number 3. It's at the end of my workout. I would always think, okay, right now, how am I doing? And I would do a physical inventory. That's an easy cue to start with. So for your question that was pointed to me, I always think we'll start, at the top of your head, your shoulders, your back, your neck, and concentrate on relaxing the non-working parts. And I'll just say lastly, Helen, there's never a workout or never a race where you don't feel lousy, where you feel like, oh my God, this is the worst day of my life. When you feel like that, you always want to diffuse it down to very short term. So, for example, on the bike, if you say, wow, I can't believe how hard it is climbing this hill today, my legs feel shattered, my breathing rate's real high. I always say, okay, you see that fence post up there? It's 50 meters away. Let's make it smooth. Relax my shoulders, back, neck, put my energy into my legs, make sure I'm breathing, my stomach's going in and out. I get to that fence post and I say, okay, that's not too bad. And then all of a sudden the next segment becomes a little bit longer. So you really have to bring it down. And then, the last thing that you never want to do is to dwell on what you've just done. In a race, you say, God, I felt so bad back there. Well, that is about the worst thing you can do. That's the worst dose of poison you can probably put into your mind, is to say, boy, I felt really bad 20K back. I wonder if I'm going to feel that bad coming up. Well, don't do that. That's nonsense. So what is past is past. Because you want the spontaneity of the moment to allow yourself to extract the highest potential and not elicit this fear response of, fear of failure that I'm not going to make it. That's nonsense.
So that one was from David Putterman. Matt Wackett asked a similar question, and then there's one more which they're fairly similar, and then I've got two fairly quick questions I want to ask you after that. So Geordie Racer and Adrian Moy have both asked about any of the technology today that you would love to have had back in the day when you were racing.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a pretty easy one. I mean, take a look at the video way back when on what we were racing. Take a look at the bikes, the wheels. Even the clothing. People laugh. I have for lack of a better term, a highlights video. And I do it because it's funny. It's not, like, wow, I'm going to really exploit myself and show you this great Dave Scott footage. I do it because people say, wow, you actually wore that. A floppy shirt and high socks and, just dreadful looking clothes. Now we know the clothes. I wore cotton. Technologically, it was about the worst thing you could wear. It was all over the shop. It was swinging in the breeze. And the bikes, yeah, boy, I wish I had a hot bike. I have a Scott bike now, no affiliation to me. Well, the thing's a rocket. Even at my age, I can ride the thing pretty darn fast because it's designed beautifully. It feels awesome. It climbs like a deer. The wheels on it, I have Envy wheels on it. I didn't have wheels like that when I raced. These wheels, I put them on and I just said, wow, it just wants to roll. I don't even have to pedal it. So the bike technology is staggering, and I'm lucky in that just those two companies, I'm aligned with them. And Hoob, I've got a Dave Scott Long Course tri-suit. I put that on, or I put on those incredible pants and just the shorts. And I say, wow, I feel like magic in the water. We didn't have a swim skin that we put on. We just wore little swim briefs. I can give you the whole list. The technology was not there. Yeah, if I had the technology back then, yeah, would we have gone faster? Yeah, absolutely. What kind of silly question is that?
Dave R. asks a similar one then. He says, should moustaches and short shorts make a comeback? And is there a psychological performance gain to be had by looking like the man?
Oh, man. That was dreadful. We thought we were really cool then, wear those short shorts that were almost illegal. And, mustaches in the 80s were kind of the look. We thought we were, I don't know, some movie star or something. I don't know. It was just, I remember my family after a while, I had a mustache for about 10 years, and they said, you know what, you look terrible with a mustache because you shave that thing off. So that's not the look that you want to try to plan for in this day and age. Don't do that. That's awful.
Dave, thank you so much for your time.
Helen, my pleasure. It's nice talking to you, and say hello to all your listeners in the UK. And I have a newsletter out. It's free if they're interested in subscribing to it. So they can Google me. It's pretty easy to find. There's either an astronaut or a felon, a good musician, or myself. So they'll probably find me. with a mustache on.
What a guy, Rob.
The legend. And there's only a few people we really should use that phrase about. The legend that is Dave Scott.
Honestly, it was I so enjoyed talking to him. I really feel like I would love to go and have a glass of red wine with Dave Scott. He was
Totally,
just
yeah.
brilliant to talk to. I felt like I was just every sentence that was coming out of his mouth, I was thinking, oh, you can learn so much from this. This is amazing. And it talking about all of the intervals, and then telling us there about quite how impressive Chrissie Wellington's performance was in 2011, and then thoughts on Brownlee and Gomez and all the pros who were not necessarily all of them, but a lot of them racing too much. It's just fascinating. Honestly, I could rewind that right now again and listen to it right now again.
Yeah, he's the man, isn't he? And it's such a shame that he got hit by that car. Was it in 2011 or 2012? Sometime around then, wasn't it? When he was in really good shape and getting back into really good shape, and I'd have loved to have seen him race again in his, what would he have been, in his mid-50s at the time, I guess.
He did. What? I'm
trying to do the maths of. I just remember him, posting at the time about how he was getting back into really good shape, and then a car kind of did a U-turn across the road in front of him, and he broke his hand and did all kinds of damage to himself. Because he's a really great example of someone who, having trained his whole life and having stayed in really great shape his whole life, he was still saying he could run a 2:40 marathon in his 50s, which I think is like one in the eye for this idea that you have to get slower as you get older.
Well, yeah. So he did 2:45, didn't he, at the age of 42 in 1996, which is nice and swift. And Rob, I mean, at that point you were saying there's an American woman in her 50s who has qualified. She got the qualifying time for the Olympic trials in the marathon.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you say, it's just, yeah. I mean, if your pins are still in good nick,
keep working.
Yeah, if you've not smashed your body to pieces when you're younger.
Look after your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. What a great guy. That's it. We've had two on now. We've had Mark Allen and Dave Scott. Whoever would have thought it, Hells, when we first sat down in my conservatory 3.5 years ago?
I wouldn't have.
No, well, just goes to show, doesn't it? Dream big. All right, a couple of items of news to bring you. And we're sponsoring by Fueled by Cake. So Hel's given an update. How are the sales going on Fueled by Cake at the moment?
Oh, well, Rob, my really, big bike ride to the post office today, I posted over $20.
Awesome.
Out. So that's great. So yeah, nicely is the answer. So fueledbycake.com, trying to raise £15,000 for Melanoma UK, East Cheshire Hospice and Young Epilepsy, and we are on track. So check it out. Loads of good recipes, some of them healthy, some of them really not healthy. Fueled by more cake, and yeah, it's £10 all for charity. So Rob, first bit of news to bring you is that Javier Gomez has announced that he is going to be racing Challenge Wanaka, which is awesome.
Love it. Now, one thing I wasn't sure of from the article, he's doing the full distance, right?
It's only a half.
Oh.
Yes. It's Challenge Wanaka half.
But they do have a full distance as well.
No, not this year. Not for the pros.
Not for the pros. Right, there you go. Okay, I thought I'd misread it. Yeah, so the age group, the full distance is just for the age group race, is it?
That is, I'm going to check right now, Rob, but I definitely know that they do not have a full distance race for pros at all this year.
Right, okay. Well, that makes sense then. Yeah, great stuff. Get him down in Wanaka, bit of early season race for him, because you see, I read it as, I scanned to the bottom and thought, is it the half, is it the full? And when it said it is the full distance race, I was like, oh, he's racing a full distance race. So I'd misunderstood, you see.
No. So there is the full, but it's age group only, and then the pro race is the Challenge Wanaka half.
Got you. All right, cool. So good stuff. Gomez doing a bit of racing down there. I bet he was watching with interest this weekend at the Dubai results, right?
Dubai, you reckon? Yeah, I think he would have been actually, because, well, obviously Gomez wasn't out in Rio. He has said that he hasn't ruled out Tokyo still. Clearly, he has also outlined his intention to race at the Ironman World Championship this year. He obviously qualifies from winning the 70.3 Worlds last year. So yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see him racing at such a an iconic event, isn't it?
Has he talked about racing the 70.3 Worlds in the build-up to Kona?
I don't know.
I haven't seen any chatter about it, and you wonder whether, because timing-wise it fits in quite well, and the prospect of him and Brownlee going at each other in the 70.3 Worlds is
exactly. It's great,
mouth-watering to say the least, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be brilliant because we want to see the best people racing, don't we? And so if you do get a Brownlee up against a Gomez, well, happy days.
Yeah, throw Sanders into the mix. Possibly Frodeno, definitely Sebi Kienle. Could be the best year ever.
Honestly, well, if it's anything like the championship race, that was great to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, good. Oh, exciting times.
I know. And then, Rob, the other bit of news is that Super League Triathlon, we had Maka on the podcast last year, didn't we?
Yeah.
Talking about Super League, and we watched bits of it, which was in Jersey. Well, it is going to be returning to Jersey for the next 5 years, which is amazing.
I've seen that photo you talked about of the women's outfits.
Oh, yes.
The women's outfit that's top half skin suit, bottom half bikini.
Yes, dreadful.
What made him think that was a good idea?
I don't know.
It looks like something from Zoolander.
Well, Rob, in our patrons podcast, you will be able to hear Jodie Stimpson's opinion on
that's suits,
right. On those suits when that is released over the next few
I was forgetting we hadn't played that bit out yet. Jodie Stimpson, oh, brilliant. Yeah, listen for that when the Patrons podcast comes out. She's value for money. We'll have to send the clip to Maka so he can hear it and see if we can get the suits redesigned, eh?
I don't know what they were thinking. But there we go. So yeah, Super League is going to be returning to Jersey, which is awesome because it's such an exciting format of racing. And I know the likes of Jodie Stimpson, who we just mentioned there, she spoke so positively about it and really, really loved it. And she was like, ka-ching, get in, that it's coming back to Jersey. So that is ace. And Rob, a little reminder for people, we announced the Tribe Triathlete of the Month award last week, and that was Jane, wasn't it, from Chorley Triathlon and Athletic Club. So Jane, a load of Tribe goodies on their way to Jane, which is very exciting. So we want your nominations for February, and you have to email helen@oxygenaddict.com. We need a couple of paragraphs about the person and their achievement, and then we need it by the 25th of February, and then we will announce the winner in the last show of each calendar month.
Yeah, we sure will. So you can nominate yourself, you can nominate a training partner, a friend, a club mate, family member, anybody basically. Don't even have to be a listener of the show, but hopefully, there will be one. And I'd love it, now we're starting to get into race season, if we can start nominating people who've done astounding performances. I think that's really good. So if you know anyone who's raced at 70.3 Dubai, for example, and has had a storming race, that would be a good example of something that we can get on the show, isn't it? Let's start celebrating people who've worked hard and made massive improvements. That'd be awesome.
And they don't need to have necessarily won it, Rob, do they?
No, not at all. You don't have to have won anything. What I'm more interested in, and I always have been, more interested in people who have made massive changes in their lives, and people who've worked hard consistently over 2 or 3 years maybe, and have got themselves to the point where they're a long way from where they started. It might be that you're winning stuff, but it might be that finishing 50th in your age group is a massive achievement because you used to be 16 stone or 18 stone or whatever. So anything at all that you think is noteworthy of celebration, get it over to us, and we shall have a read of your emails, and we'll make a decision, won't we, Hells?
Yep, for sure. So well done to Jane for being our first winner, and just get in touch at helen@oxygenite.com.
Great stuff. All right, we're going to wrap the show up here then for this week. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. You've been listening to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
And I'm Helen Murray.
And until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. Watch out for the black ice if you're going out riding at the weekends in the UK at the moment. And we will be back next week when we will have an interview with... Who did we say we were going to have on next week? Do you remember? Hopefully Heather Jackson, isn't it?
Well, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping in about 10 minutes I'll be catching up with her.
I hope I've not cursed it now.
I really hope you haven't.
Fingers crossed. No pressure, Hells. All right, and on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thanks very much, everyone. See ya.